So welcome on in, guys. Three bold takes. This is the Week 7 overreactions. As you know, we have a special guest every single week for overreactions. And this week, it's one of my old buddies named Justin. Actually worked with him a long time ago. So, Justin, I appreciate you coming on, man. This should be a lot of fun. We have a lot of hot topics for you. So for the first overreaction, Quinn actually brought to our attention something about the ACC. So Quinn, just get it rolling, brother.
Yeah, my overreaction, I'm hopping back onto a take I had from last week when we were talking about our playoff predictions, which is that there is not going to be an ACC team in the playoffs. Now, the reason I've landed on like this as a hot take, last week I picked Miami to upset North Carolina. I thought that's where the upset was going to come in the ACC. I did not see it coming from Pitt beating Louisville. However, the gist of my idea from last week was the AC or the nature of the ACC over the past few years has been surprise upsets. I mean, it's happened to Clemson a handful of times. Only when Clemson was really at their peak did they avoid it. I don't have a lot of confidence in Florida State right now. Not as much as I did after week 1. And I think some of that's because I feel like the LSU game has gotten hurt over the season, as it's been like LSU defensively has been extremely exposed. And then North Carolina, I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop on North Carolina like it always does. But even if, let's say, Florida State or North Carolina get to the ACC title game, if the conference champion of the ACC is a one-loss team, and I think this is important to talk about, you've got a one-loss SEC conference champion or an undefeated one, a one-loss or undefeated Big Ten, one-loss Pac-12, and then let's say one-loss Texas or undefeated Oklahoma. I don't think the ACC champion gets slotted in over any of those teams. I feel like even though the SEC has been down this season, the perception of the SEC is too strong to keep a one-loss or undefeated team from that conference out. Until I see the committee do it, I just feel like they're going to get put. Because let's be real, I mean, who fits that description? It's either going to be one-loss Alabama somehow upsetting Georgia or undefeated Georgia. Now, if Georgia's the one-loss conference champion, maybe we can talk because their strength of schedule will be bad. I think the Big Ten is whoever wins that conference deserves a spot. I think Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State are all really, really good teams this year. I think the conference is top-heavy, but the champion's worth being there. I think the Pac-12 is super deep top to bottom. And then if you look at the Oklahoma-Texas scenario, you're either going to have one-loss Texas, who has that big road win at Alabama from the beginning of the year, who would have pseudo-avenged their own loss or not even pseudo, they would have avenged their own loss by beating the team that beat them. Or you're going to have Oklahoma, who, if they're going to lose, it's going to be in the Big 12 title game to Texas, I think. I don't think anyone on the back end of their schedule is going to beat them. Maybe Oklahoma State and Bedlam, but if you look at the history of that, Oklahoma pretty much runs that game. So my take is the ACC is going to cannibalize itself to the point they don't even have to lose. It doesn't have to be a two-loss conference champion. Just a one-loss conference champion would keep them out.
Wow. Justin, would you like to go first here?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with what he's saying. I looking here, I think North Carolina probably, like, the cannibalization topic makes the most sense because if you look at North Carolina's schedule, the benefit is for North Carolina and Florida State, they don't play each other until if they make it to the conference championship, they won't have to play each other. The only thing for North Carolina is to state their claim better. They have a win against what was 25 Miami and what can be a ranked Duke team. But Florida State plays Duke before North Carolina. So if Florida State beats Duke, that'll hurt North Carolina because Duke won't be as good. They also play Clemson and finish with North Carolina State. I don't think North Carolina ends up finishing the season undefeated. I think they slip up against either Duke, Clemson, or NC State. I also think at Georgia Tech on the 28th is a sleeper. I think that is a very good chance of them losing that game at Georgia Tech. And I feel like probably it's going to be like one of those night games where nobody's watching. Drake May is going to throw like 3 picks. You never know. But I definitely think that they'll probably get overstepped by a one-loss conference champion from another conference, whether it be like Texas or Oklahoma or Ohio State or somebody from one of those conferences. I think will probably overstep them, but I think Florida State probably has the best chance to make it just because of where they're ranked at right now. I mean, they're ranked at right now. What was it? 3 in the country? 4?
I think they're 4.
Yeah, they're 4. So I think a loss to, I mean, one loss would hurt them, but a loss against Duke rather than another unranked team would probably be better. But I think one of those teams has to finish undefeated to make it, like Quinn was saying.
Chase, go ahead.
Yeah, let me just get this out of the way. North Carolina is going undefeated, so we don't have to worry about the ACC. But let's go with Quinn's hypothetical here. There is a couple one-loss teams in the ACC. I think the only reason that somebody else outjumps them is because of the lack of depth from top to bottom of the ACC. You have, like, Louisville was good. If Louisville kept going, it would be a lot better story for Louisville and who they played. Miami's kind of fallen off here a little bit lately, but Miami can still be an upset team. Clemson, all the rest. The only other conference that I might have to make that leave a question mark for is the Big 12. So if Oklahoma loses to somebody else besides Texas in the SEC Big 12 championship game, looking forward to next year, guys. And if Texas loses to somebody else besides Oklahoma again, I think that's when I'm looking at, okay, Oklahoma lost to a TCU or somebody. Okay, ACC, Florida State's lost one game. Who'd they lose to? And I might lean ACC there because I don't think the Big 12, you got to remember they added 4 group of 5 teams this offseason. They don't have a lot of depth outside of even the teams last year, Kansas State, TCU, that are really good, have been kind of lackluster this year, already a couple losses. So if you're not one of the top 2, and really I'm trying to think of a third that is really significant for the Big 12 right now, and I don't think there is one. So if Oklahoma loses,
Oklahoma State,
yeah,
that would be
they're both 4-2, 5-1, 4-2. Yeah, I think Kansas is 5-1 if I'm not, or 5-2. So that's only one. If Oklahoma loses outside the Big 12 championship game, and Texas doesn't win the Big 12 championship game, right? Then that's when I'm more towards the ACC. I'm looking at either Florida State or North Carolina. Freddie?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely brings up a very interesting point and a lot of hypotheticals because, traditionally, if you're a one-loss conference champion, it seems like you're a guaranteed in, right? Because we always start these hypotheticals where, well, what if there's 2, one-loss teams in the Big Ten or 2 one-loss teams in the SEC? And at this point in the season, we start this conversation, and it hardly ever happens. So it always seems to work itself out. However, with Clemson being so down compared to what we're used to, that definitely throws a wrinkle into things. It's an interesting concept, and I think of any conference, I think the ACC would be left out if there was a one-loss conference champion, barring a Big 12 cannibalizing of the top 2, right? But other than that, I mean, if you look at the Big 10, I would take the Big 10. I guess it wouldn't be the runner-up considering, the Big 3 are in the same division. But, for instance, in my case, I think Penn State's going to win the Big 10. So I would take a one-loss Ohio State over a one-loss ACC conference champion every day of the week just because they have the strength of schedule aspect of it. The Big 10 top to bottom is better.
Not to intrude, but you also get the data point of Ohio State beating Notre Dame, and Notre Dame plays a lot of ACC opponents in a given year. So that would also help with that whole.
Yeah, but they just got beat by Louisville, so that also kind of hurts as well. So I think there's a lot of things that go into it, but to me, honestly, the most interesting, and we'll talk about this later, is the Pac-12. I think that what happens in the ACC all depends on the Pac-12. That's just where I'm going to leave it. Period. I think a one-loss conference champion in the ACC will make it if something crazy happens in the Pac-12.
Now, one last thing I'll throw out there is we agree that like, oh, okay, Ohio State's strength of schedule is better. Pac-12s might be whatever. Let's put one of those, a second team from that conference in, right? That's easy for us to say. But the track record of the committee actually doing that is very seldom. You only had the Georgia and Alabama one that 1 year. Is there another one that I'm missing?
Ohio State got in 2016 as a one-loss non-conference champ. Alabama 2017. Georgia 2021.
Last year was Ohio State and Michigan as well, right?
Ohio State was one loss, non-conference last year.
Okay.
But it's always over. Oh, and Notre Dame did it in the COVID season.
They play for the ACC, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's always because there's a bunch of two-loss conference champions. So, like, I acknowledge that if a team falls off, like if a conference falls off, this is all mute. But really, the point I want to talk about is I'm not uber confident in North Carolina or Florida State to go undefeated. And I feel like perception-wise, the ACC would be at the bottom of the pecking order.
Yeah, and I wanna say something to that. You know, obviously Florida State's been in my top 4, dating back to preseason, and the confidence level in them has gone down drastically. And it's not just because of the LSU game and how LSU's sort of not really fallen off, but that win isn't as crazy as we thought it was preseason or, after week 1. They're just not – they're not flashy. Like, yes, the Boston College game, we get that. And then obviously at Clemson, which I think is a great win. But since then, they've had 2 very good wins, but they're just not sticking out to me, right? You can watch an eye test of a game and just watch a game and know that a team is significantly more dominant than the other team. And although the final scores of these games for Florida State looks like that, I'm not getting those vibes right now. So I don't know. My confidence level's down. Anything else?
Can I ask you this? Can I ask you a question, Quinn?
Yeah, what you got?
If you had to pick between North Carolina and Florida State being undefeated, if you had to, which one would you pick?
I would pick Florida State. I think they've got an easier road out during the season. Yeah. And then it just becomes I think they're going to play in the ACC title game, but I could see one loss North Carolina versus undefeated Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
My scenario kind of has North Carolina winning that game, throwing a wrench in Florida State. But if Florida State wins, I think that's the most likely scenario. And if Florida State wins that conference championship game, they're playoff undefeated.
Yeah, it just goes back to what you were saying. They're going to inevitably cannibalize themselves when it comes into the season.
Guys, thanks for watching. That's been our Week 7 overreactions. I appreciate you joining. Justin, thanks for coming on the show. You've been great. Hopefully we can have you back maybe during bowl season. Guys, thanks for watching and listening. It's been 3 Bold Takes. I'm Freddie. I've been joined with Chase and Quinn. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share to your friends, and we will see you guys with a lot of videos this week.